Good afternoon, Charles. How are you?
Good afternoon, Dan. I'm doing just fine. It's been a bit of a long day, but feeling good. How about you?
The same. Long day, but I'm feeling good, and I'm excited to do version 2.0 of this podcast.
Yeah, this will be episode number 6, covering chapter 5. We did this once already, but somebody whose name rhymes with, well, pretty much nothing.
Morals.
Whose name rhymes with nothing. Was a little too on top of his microphone, so the audio wasn't great, and I also rambled on a little excessively on some topics, as I'm wont to do. So I am happy, giving our listeners, our dozens and dozens of listeners, a better version.
Yes, hopefully this is the better version.
We are we're both what, five days into, we're recording this on January 5th, so we're both 5 days into our 30-day animal-based eating challenge.
Yep. And dry January.
And dry January. Yeah, yes. So we're eating lots of dead animals and drinking no fermented grains.
Right.
So yeah, that's doing without alcohol is not a big deal for me at all. I like to tell people I have a very boring relationship with alcohol, where I'll have one or two drinks socially with my friends, and then if I have number 3, then it's time to say goodbye to everybody because I have to take a nap.
For me, it's more about going to places where they serve alcohol and not ordering alcohol. That's where I have a little bit of anxiety around that. Not that I need the alcohol, but I just feel like I should be. This is just what you do there. That I'm not.
Right.
So I tend to leave a little extra big tip in those cases, probably out of guilt more than anything else.
When you're drinking their club soda.
Right. Yeah. I do. It lets me sleep at night when I do that.
Yeah. I'll usually, a lot of bars won't even end up charging you for a club soda. And right. So, I'll make the bartender take, $5 or $10, depending on, the place. And if I know them and stuff like that, it's like, no, please, you.
Yeah.
It's not your fault that I'm doing some stupid challenge that my friend talked me into.
Blame this guy.
Yeah. Blame Dan. So yeah, let's you got anything you want to cover before we jump in, or do you want to get right to the meat and potatoes?
No, let's get right to the meat and potatoes. Yeah, we've teased long enough, I guess we can say. So this is chapter 5 of No More Mr. Nice Guy, basically reclaiming your personal power. And this is where Dr. Glover leads off, calling nice guys wimps.
Right, which is what we'll be naming this episode. Nice guys are wimps.
Right.
So that we can get a little bit of that, oh, what an edgy, controversial title.
Yeah.
Let's download this and see what these, and then they download it, listen to us, and we're boring. So haha, right. Jokes on them.
Gotcha. So basically he's claiming that nice guys are wimps because that they're of the childhood survival mechanisms they created. Basically from being abandoned, neglected, they became victims, and these survival mechanisms are requiring them to sacrifice their personal power.
Yeah, the idea of I shouldn't be out there gaining a bunch of people's attention. I shouldn't be controversial. I shouldn't be in anybody's face about anything. I need to fade into the background as much as possible so that people don't feel put out to meet my needs. And so as a result, they're giving up their power and all the stuff that, all the vitality that makes men, right?
Right. And this is really kind of just, that victim mindset. And typically they'll express that in their body language and their voices, saying things like, it's not fair. How come somebody else gets to make the rules? If that person would just blank, right. then everything would be okay. And that is not taking control of the situation. It's not trying to make it better. It's not trying to change it. It's just, I'm a victim. I'm powerless to do anything about it.
Yeah. It's a dangerous combination of feeling both, carrying that childhood mindset of every bad thing that happens to me is all my fault because I control the world, but then also being a victim of every bad thing that happens to me is unfair and other people shouldn't treat me this way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Right.
like there's these conflicting ideas that both lead to misery.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And, a lot of that is because they think, life should be smooth, right? You shouldn't have a problem for your life. And that's completely unrealistic. It's, just life doesn't operate that way. And it's sometimes beyond anybody's control. So, now you, as a nice guy, you're struggling to deal with that. And you're using, the models and the ideas of how to deal with those things that you develop as a child to kind of deal with them as an adult. And that really is the opposite of what works.
Yeah, I would say that most of the people I've met that have sort of a negative mindset on life and feel like they're constantly being victimized. They have this attitude that life is a mix of order imposed on them by other stronger people and chaos that's completely out of their control. So they feel like, either I'm under somebody else's control or randomly bad things just happen to me. And that seems to really embody the victim mindset of just, I'm powerless and I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. I hear a lot of also, it must be nice. I hear a lot of those where, you're really lucky. Right. And when something, when somebody does something that actually took some skill set or experience, and a lot of times that, or a lot of effort. And sometimes I've heard from victims say, oh, well, that must be nice, and completely dismiss all of the work, effort, time, energy that person put in behind the scenes. Now, I'm not talking about winning the lottery. Yeah, that's a little bit different. But when it comes to, having good things in your life and being able to, earn some money and afford some nice things and some pampering and things like that, go on some vacations, most of the time that's been earned.
Yeah. There was one time a friend of mine said something to me where I had recently purchased myself a rather fancy formal dress shirt, like a fancy tuxedo shirt with a detachable collar and one of the nicest ones, the nicest one Brooks Brothers sells, which is saying something.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was just making conversation. Oh, that's a nice shirt. Where'd you get it? Mind if I ask how much it was? And it was $225, which is a lot of money to spend on a dress shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a response of, wow, it must be nice. And, I think I was probably, a couple of glasses of whiskey into the evening. And I said, that I don't drink beer and drink at home and I don't smoke, right? And this gentleman, this friend, did both of those things. And I was like, do I need to get out my phone and show you the math of how long you could go not drinking beer at home and not smoking cigarettes and be able to buy a $200 dress shirt?
Yeah. Under a month, I bet.
way under a month.
I guess it depends on how much she's drinking, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, knowing this example, it would,
tomorrow.
It's all about,
you could have the dress shirt tomorrow.
It's all about what you find valuable, what you're willing to spend your time on. And that's true for, whether it's somebody commenting on your nice car or your vacation or whatever. It's like, look, if you spent time doing the things that neither you nor I think are fun, but you think that they're worth it, then you could have some of these things too. I mean, I remember when I was first getting, my training in information technology, specifically, getting Microsoft certified and stuff. I'd go work all day and then I'd come home and I would play around with the, Windows servers that I built and installed myself for hours every night, trying to learn how to use them and how to do certain things. When a lot of my friends were out having fun, I was doing that. And so not more than 2 or 3 years later, I already start seeing, the edge in my career over where they are in theirs because I put that time in. And yes, I enjoyed it, but I would have enjoyed other things too. But I said no to the things that I enjoyed for something that I, would be able to enjoy more down the road.
Yeah, nobody sees that. Nobody sees how
look, I'm not a guy who's known for my ability to delay gratification, But when something intersects my passion and a future payoff, I can usually see the value in that.
Yeah, that's a great example. I like that. So Glover also talks about how to overcome this wimp factor, as he states. Basically, the integrated man, he really needs to become somebody who is confident and is able to deal with problems, challenges, and adversity, and actually welcomes them, meets them head on, and is thankful for them, for that growth, for that experience. And that is a complete 180 from the wimp factor. Now, getting there though is, especially if you're coming from that type of victim mentality,
right?
That's a challenge, without a doubt. That's not something turn on a light switch and all of a sudden you're, thanks for this problem.
I had this thought a couple years ago that for the most part, most men after you get out of college, or you get out of, if you go into a career, military or law enforcement, obviously this wouldn't apply. But for most of us, once we get out of high school or college, we're kind of done doing things that we're afraid of failing at. We'll grind away at our job and mostly do the things that we know we can get done. But like taking on something that somebody tells us we have to, and we're scared, like, oh, I've never done this before, I'm not sure I can do this, I might fail, then what happens? Mm-hmm. That's not an experience that a lot of men really expose themselves to voluntarily once you get past your mid-20s, right?
Right. Yeah, because it's sometimes hard to see the value in that. What is the why? What's motivating you to push past those uncomfortable feelings and the potential failures?
Yeah.
A lot of times that's what is not clear or easily seen or able to be, or that you're able to remember when you're feeling those emotions and everything else like that.
Yeah. One thing that I remember the comedian / podcast host Adam Carolla talking about was, when he got invited to be on Dancing with the Stars, he was already a successful comedian, successful radio host. And he said, as soon as his agent suggested to him, his reaction was, oh no, I could never do that. And he's like, that's the moment that he decided he had to do it. Not for the fame, not for the money, but just because he was so like afraid of it and just uncomfortable with the thought of doing it. He's like, okay, I've got a pretty comfortable life and I don't get to feel this way very often. So the fact that I had this reaction of, oh no, I could never do that, that's what told me, okay, you're due to do something that makes you feel this way.
And to even have that mindset that you'd want to do that you see that there's value in feeling that uncomfortableness and the what you're going to learn from going through that. That's another level as well, to be able to even go, yeah, bring it on. All right. I'm really scared of this.
I get that a little bit every time we fire up these microphones, because I don't know exactly what's going to come out or how I'm going to feel about it after. And it's just like, yeah, the more that we've got an episode coming up, the sex chapter that we're going to release, I guess the week after this one, where we're going to do a version 2 on that one as well, because the first one we did, it was like, man, I felt like I was on the razor's edge the whole time of trying to, handle it in a appropriate, impersonal way, but also try to communicate, what I think is important for people to hear. And it's exhilarating and it's a little scary, but when it goes well, like the episode we released before this one, number 5, I think that was our best episode. And getting, normally just listening back to my own voice and hearing myself, rant or mansplain is, makes me a little uncomfortable. But that last episode, I was like, man, I'm enjoying listening to this. I think we pulled it together for this one. And so the nerves plus the preparation plus the, little bit of a sigh of relief of, oh, that actually went well.
Yeah.
That's how you take on things that you don't know if you're going to like doing.
Yeah. And Glover gives an outline with a few different things that people can do to actually get through that. And he calls it reclaiming your personal power.
Yeah.
And he does put a disclaimer that this is not the absence of fear. It's not a method of getting rid of fear. Everybody feels fear, and the difference is feeling it and doing it anyway, not giving it into it. And a lot of people define that as courage, right? Feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Right.
And he goes over a few different topics, such as surrendering, dwelling in reality, expressing feelings, facing fears, developing integrity, and setting boundaries. And that's something that I've needed to work on as well. So surrendering.
Yeah.
What do you think about what he says about surrendering? What does that mean?
That's the toughest one for me. This ability to, certainly not give up and not roll over and show your belly, but the ability to recognize the difference between what's controllable and what's not controllable, and then accepting, the peace of mind that can come with saying, all right, this one's out of my control, and I'm just kind of along for the ride.
Right. Yeah. And that really comes from that serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
To me, the value in that is the wisdom to know the difference of what is changeable and what is not.
Yeah. It reminds me of the situation I had a couple months back when I wrecked my truck driving up I-95, hit a hard thunderstorm, and ended up completely losing control, doing around 60, 65 miles an hour. And, once your windshield's pointing the wrong direction on 95 when you're at those speeds, you're like, okay, this is there's nothing I'm gonna do to make this okay. It's just I got to just hope that the airbags and the bumpers and the structure of the body does what it's supposed to do, because at this point I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, talk about letting go. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and all that happens obviously within a fraction of a second, but I did have the realization of, okay, there's nothing I can do to fix this.
How long did that second feel?
Oh, obviously it felt like forever. I mean, it felt like, yeah. I mean, I spun around probably 2 or 3 times before I hit the guardrail, and nobody else was hurt. I wasn't hurt. I got a little shaken up, obviously. My shoulder hit the side curtain airbag hard enough to be a little uncomfortable, but I didn't have to, go to the hospital or anything like that. The car did what it was supposed to do in keeping the guy inside safe. But yeah, it was definitely a minute of, okay, whatever's going to happen here is going to happen here. And let's see how this unfolds, because I can't do anything to impact it one way or another.
That experience ever come to mind with you going through life and running into other things that you're feeling a little fearful about, or does it ever flash through your mind that experience specifically?
Yeah, the part of it, and this isn't me, building myself up as I'm a courageous, brave guy or whatever, but there was a flash of, if this goes bad, I could die. And I thought that thought, but I didn't have any fear about it. Like, I wasn't afraid, oh no, I'm going to die. It was just like, yeah, this could be it. And,
wow.
and if it is, it is,
Wow.
It definitely, I'm a big fan of reading works of Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. And I feel like over the last few years, taking that stuff in, when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, those were the thoughts that really bubbled up in my head. Like, yeah, this could be it. And, it's not great, but it's not a cause to start freaking out for the last, 2 seconds I got.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I guess you kind of almost function on autopilot at that point, right?
The worst part is I had some bald tires on that truck that led to some not great control. And then I replaced them. And as soon as I got new tires is when that accident happened.
Wow.
Okay, maybe that's not the worst part, but that's the part that annoyed me post-accident. I was like, son of a gun. I just blew this money on these new tires and now this thing's totaled.
So Glover actually addresses that. He says instead of letting go doesn't mean not caring or trying. It just means letting it be. And you shouldn't be asking, why is this happening to me? But rather responding to life challenges as wondering, what can I learn from this situation? And one of the things that I like, he says you should look at life as an experiment, like you're in a lab.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's consistent with the most insightful things that the Stoics said, which is, there's a whole book written by Ryan Holiday. The title is "The Obstacle is the Way." Mm-hmm. Like the thing that is your impediment is the thing that can lead you to the goal. And it's hard to think of that when you're in the moment, but if you spend your time focusing on thoughts like that when things are going relatively peaceful and relatively okay, then based on my experience, then you can grab hold of that when you're in the middle of the chaos.
Yeah And I know afterwards, I'm sure you felt that Glover, I like the way he phrases this. If you surrender, it allows you to see each life experience as a gift from the universe to stimulate growth, healing, and learning. And it sounds like you may have embraced that a little bit afterwards.
A little bit, it comes and goes. I certainly, I'm not where I want to be as far as a destination, but I do feel like my experiences, the last half of 2021 was a bit of a challenging time in my 44 years. And
was it New Year's Eve? Was that
New Year's Eve was not without its challenges. Yeah, that was. I don't remember. Have we talked about that in an episode that's going to see the light of day?
I think we're re-recording that one.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. When we re-record that one, we'll get into our experience dancing in a public venue with strange women.
Yes.
and all the anxiety associated with that for a couple of wallflowers like us.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, one of the reasons why I like doing this podcast with you is because it's similar approach here in terms of it being an outlet for each of us to share our experiences in life. Right. And what we've learned from not just from the book, but from our life and what's been valuable for us, what we can kind of do without. And that requires us both being a little vulnerable here. So I think in a way, we're really kind of challenging ourselves through this podcast and sharing this with people, to really take this work seriously.
Yeah. And I was just telling somebody today that the title Mindfully Masculine, it's not really about us telling other people, men or women, what they should be or how they should be. It's more of a mindset that we would like, a perspective that you and I would endeavor to bring toward talking about important topics and how people can make a better life for themselves through learning more about how they work and why they work.
Right.
And it's just a helpful mindset that we're trying to develop because we think there are benefits for us, and expose people to it, and they can, take the pieces that they find value in as well.
Right. And the thing too is it doesn't just apply to men, right? Yes, it's called Mindfully Masculine. However, there, a lot of these concepts, a lot of these philosophies and advice can be applied to anybody.
Yeah, I think just the idea of taking the lead in your own life and accepting as much responsibility for yourself as you can. I mean, I think healthy people of all shapes and forms get benefit from doing that.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so let's talk about the folks that refuse to dwell in reality, and once they make that choice, what it can do for them.
So, are these people using virtual reality goggles all the time that he's talking about here? People not dwelling in reality? No,
I think. Do we still call it virtual reality, or have we moved on to augmented reality?
Augmented, okay.
I think we have. Dan.
Okay.
You're showing your age.
Clearly.
This isn't the Lawnmower Man anymore. That's a timely 90s Stephen King reference right there.
Oh my gosh. So, right. A lot of nice guys try to control the world because they've got these belief systems about people and situation that aren't what is actually happening in the real world. And a lot of times it's illogical to outside observers, and you need that outside help. So whether that's a group or a therapist to kind of give you a little bit of that perspective, to see kind of what's going on. Sometimes it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle, right? So to really get that outside perspective and make them wake up to see, hey, what you think is happening here is not actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, think about, a child who forms the idea of, my caregiver didn't meet my needs. I didn't get fed quickly enough. I didn't get my diaper changed. I didn't get picked up and held when I was crying. Whatever it was, I had a need, and that need did not get met. So I have to now, as a little kid, I have to explain to myself what happened for this need to not get met. And that in many cases, that's where toxic shame comes in, of I just wasn't worth being attended to. And so you sort of zero in on that idea. And then from that young age, 2-3 years old, you then form your vision of reality based on having to conform to that presupposition that you're not going to let go of at any cost, because it's like you develop this new strategy to stay alive. Yep. And so if you have to act a certain way to stay alive, then boy, you're not going to move off of that idea no matter the cost. So you'll bend the way reality actually is to fit that plan that you've come up with for your own survival.
Yeah, and a lot of that shows up in the relationships that they create. Is they will fit that person into that reality, that mold, and the interactions that they have with that person. Yeah,
conceivably, you'll have a wife that you fight and bicker with for hours a day, every day. And then when somebody like Dr. Glover in a session says, what was the last thing your wife did to really get you upset? Oh, my wife is perfect. I never get mad at her. Completely overlooking the fact that you come home from work every day and you guys scream at each other about, stuff around the house or money or the kids or whatever. But then when an outside observer asks you about how you relate to each other, oh, everything's fine. Everything's great.
Right. Because that's his idea of a perfect life. Right. And a perfect wife. And that's that there is no other option.
Right. And if you express that you don't have a perfect life, then all of a sudden you're a man with a need that needs to be fulfilled. And people who share their needs, they get left in their crib or whatever. Right.
Yeah. And that generates anxiety. And one of the other things Glover talks about is expressing feelings, how nice guys are terrified of two kinds of feelings.
Yep.
Their own and everyone else's.
Theirs and everyone else's. Those two varieties, the ones inside and the ones outside. And
that was cute. I liked the way you said that. Yeah,
I do too. I certainly have suffered from that in the past at certain points, and it's an instinct I have where feelings can make me very uncomfortable, and they just exhaust me too. Like if I have a fight with a wife or a girlfriend, I just want to crawl up in bed and sleep there for 10 hours. It just takes everything out of me, because it feels like this is wrong. This isn't supposed to be happening. You're not supposed to be doing this. And so it just sucks the life and the energy out of me. And I just want to crawl up in a ball and go to sleep for 10 hours. And that's not the way as humans and as animals, we're not supposed to adapt to having feelings or being around feelings of other people that way. That tendency is because something's broken that should never, have been that way.
Yeah. And they don't want to invite that negative attention. They'd rather have no attention at all. Let's pretend it didn't happen almost. Right.
Exactly. Let's pretend this problem doesn't exist until, we can't pretend anymore and our whole world blows up. Right.
Because then those consequences won't happen.
Right.
And he does give a good, he says that he tells some of his patients that, for these nice guys, that feelings are just feelings and they won't kill you. And I know that's easier said than done, but I think it's a start to kind of go, all right, let me think about this actually here. Let me analyze what these things are. These are just vibrations in my body.
Right.
This is not, this is not something that's going to, it's not something that's attacking me. It's not something hunting me. This is not, I'm going to lose, membership in the tribe. Right. I'm not going to be abandoned.
But the interesting thing is all of these fears that the nice guy experiences regarding feelings, he can't even admit that he's afraid of them. What he has to say is he has to assign some sort of nobility to it. Of, I keep my feelings to myself because I don't want to hurt somebody else. When no, in reality, you keep your feelings to yourself because you've got this covert contract with the world that if you don't rock the boat, everything will be smooth sailing.
Right.
But
you come across again inherently dishonest.
Right.
You're pretending to be this noble. Right. I'm yeah.
Nobody has to worry about me. I'm just even keeled. No trouble coming from my direction. But I mean, literally, to keep up the metaphor of the ship on the ocean, the nice guy believes that if he can control his rudder well enough, then the ocean will only be calm. But so much of the ocean, almost I'd say all of the ocean, is completely out of your control.
Yeah.
And all you can do is react to it in the way that, the healthy way that you've been trained to deal with. But this idea of I'm just going to pretend that as long as I got a nice firm grasp on my rudder, no waves will be coming. It's like, good luck.
Yeah. And he talks about, I mean, it's not that much different in terms of, he talks about fears, and it's basically the same thing as emotions, right? You're kind of hiding those fears. You don't want to face them, and think that, life is going to be this smooth glass surface of the ocean that you're talking about. And that's not the case. And so when, fears are thought about and addressed and brought up, they trigger these, life-threatening experiences, or when they were children, what they perceived to be life-threatening experiences,
right,
when they really were completely dependent and helpless.
Yeah, and the other thing is we've also, and by we I mean men, we have given away the topic and domain of feelings to women, where if we acknowledge or want to discuss or want to experience feelings, we've set up an environment where it feels inherently feminine to engage in any of those discussions or even any of those thoughts about, hey, I'm having these emotions, I'm having these feelings, where, we did that at our own, as a disservice to ourselves. Men have created passionate works of engineering, works of art, works of worship, and those are motivated by feelings and emotions. And to cut those off, cuts us off from some of the best things about being a man.
Right. And some of the other things are, avoiding new situations. Basically, you're staying with the familiar, and, end up procrastinating, avoiding, or failing to finish what they start. Again, not finishing those wonderful, works of art, or, those pieces of music or whatever that is, that they're actually pulling from those feelings and facing some of those fears, right? Potentially making bad situations worse by doing more of what didn't work in the past. And then expending a whole lot of energy trying to control what's uncontrollable.
Right, because they didn't learn the lesson of surrendering, a couple pages ago. Then it's still a matter of, I'm going to try to control either random circumstances or the thoughts, feelings, and actions of other people.
And so one of the ways he talks about how to handle that is going through and spending some time and actually probably like sitting with those emotions, sitting with those fears, and brainstorming worst case scenarios of what could happen, and really kind of then saying, looking at that and saying, hey, is this accurate? Is this really what's most likely to happen? And as you start to kind of get that out of your head, you get that in front of you, you can look at those and go, all right, look, I can handle this. This really isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And he says, really start to develop that mindset with whatever fear, whatever I'm anxious about, whatever I get anxiety about, this is something that I can handle. I can handle it. I can move forward. And I think it really, and it's really just kind of like spending that time with those fears and getting them out there, so you can use different parts of your brain, I feel, to really get a better sense of what reality is, and not just base your mental, your thoughts based on your primitive brain and your emotions about these fears.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing that we should keep in mind, how lucky we are in Western culture in the 21st century. I mean, for the most part, people get very excited about elections these days, especially in the United States. If the wrong guy or gal wins an election,
wait, we actually have elections here. Like people have a choice. Really? Okay.
Not only do we have a choice, but
That's
if
new.
things don't go your way, it's very unlikely that somebody's going to tie each of your limbs up to a different horse and pull your body apart in the town square.
Wow, you really went for that one. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. Yeah, the I can handle it is more true now in our society than it's ever been true before. Because again, if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, you might have to go find a job somewhere else. You might lose out on one relationship, and then you'll probably find another one. I mean, the stakes are not life and death, but because we are, these relatively hairless primates, we still look at every bad thing that happens. We want to often bump it up to the level of life and death when it really isn't.
Right. And I mean, I really believe we're pre-wired that way. Like we're the ancestors of humans that were actually very sensitive to life and death situations. And I feel like, those are the ones who survived, the ones who weren't so perceptive to, being attacked or hearing the rattling, the rustling of the bushes. And they were the ones that got eaten. Those are the ones who died, and those aren't around anymore. So I feel like, a lot of us are genetically predisposed to be to have these, severe reactions.
Yes. I mean, that's definitely true. We have to be aware of our surroundings, and a little bit of a healthy amount of anxiety can certainly keep us alive. But there is a mix of, it has to be, we have to employ the newer, bigger parts of our brain that say, right, okay, yep, this thing that feels life or death, it's actually not life or death.
And that's the challenge, is to find how to get that done and to exert that energy and to think that it's worth it, and whether that's through meditating or brainstorming and writing things out in terms of what the actual consequences are, so you can make those better decisions.
Yeah, I was chatting with my my ex-girlfriend, I don't know, a few year ago, before we broke up, obviously. And one of the realizations I had was, I would love for the message on my tombstone. What's that? Is that an epitaph? Mm-hmm. I forget which it is, but
okay.
I'd like it to say, he didn't care about the stuff that didn't matter. So if I can structure a life where I don't spend my time caring about the stuff that doesn't matter, I think that'll be a rich and happy life. Yeah.
I think part of that too is figuring out what matters and what doesn't matter to you.
Right.
Not to others, not based on shoulds that you've been programmed with.
Correct.
And I feel like, yeah, that'd be great. One of the other ways Glover talks about getting your personal power back is developing integrity, being honest and trustworthy, not lying. And I, he gets pretty granular with this and says, nice guys will think that they are honest and trustworthy and this man of integrity. And they'll say, they might say something and not give up, not reveal all of the information about it, so that they can maintain this perspective, this paradigm that they are this, man of integrity. And they'll say things like, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. Right. So, which doesn't count.
No, certainly not. I mean, if your end goal is to get behavior out of another person by, like, if you're invested in, okay, if I want Dan to do the thing I want Dan to do, then what I have to prevent is Dan seeing reality as reality actually exists. Mm-hmm. Either by telling him something that's not true or not telling him something that is true. If I'm invested in your behavior having to be the result of not knowing something that you would want to know, then I'm out of integrity. And I think Glover does a good job of basically setting up two rules. Number one, decide what's right and wrong, and evaluate things that happen based in terms of what you think is right or wrong, and then do the thing that is right every time.
Right. And the part that I liked as well helped me kind of understand the reason why nice guys may not give out all the information is because dishonesty is a fear-based behavior.
Right.
So you're scared by revealing all the information that person might get upset. They might not do what you want them to do, but you don't have the courage to say, hey, this is it. And, let's potentially either we could be fear of having an argument about it. Could be a fear of you not getting what you need. And then that's manipulation at that point. So he did a really good job, I feel, clarifying this point. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a very important principle when it comes to attracting romantic partners as well. Whether you're a man or a woman, or you're trying to attract a woman or a man or whatever, by always telling the truth, you're basically sending a message of, I don't fear the consequences of being honest. Whatever the cost of being honest is, I know I can handle it and I can survive it. So I'm not going to distort reality for anybody else's approval.
Yeah,
and
that's powerful. That's great.
It's powerful. And I mean, I certainly find that attractive in women that I date and interact with. If they have this attitude of, no, I'm not gonna tell turn the truth into something that's not true because it'll make life easier for me. I'm going to tell the truth. Now that's different from, there are people out there who have this attitude of, people don't like me because I'm real and they can't handle how real I am. And
it's an excuse to run your mouth and not think about it.
I was going to say, I can't stand those people either. The people who take pride in being offensively blunt about everything is like, no, you've got your own problems that make you unattractive to sane people, which I occasionally like to number myself among. But yeah,
you can't handle the truth.
Exactly. They can't handle me and they can't handle the truth. No, but this,
everybody's walking around like Jack Nicholson.
An attitude of, I am not going to lie because I'm going to tell the truth. And it's one thing Glover says. It's like, whether you always lie or you always tell the truth, you're not going to have a smooth, problem-free life.
Yeah.
But always telling the truth overall, at the grand scheme of things, looking at the scorecard at the end of your life, you'll have a smoother life telling the truth than you will trying to lie.
It's a lot less to remember. And it's a lot less stress. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And he helps he helps us think about when we may not be telling the whole truth. So things that come up for you that maybe you don't want other people to know, take a look at that. Are you really being fully, truly transparent and honest at that point? What are you holding back? Sometimes those are the things you are need to tell the most.
Oh, 100%. The thing that blows me away is, I've had some friends and acquaintances where after the fact, I found out that they were being unfaithful in their romantic relationship. And I just think back to the anxiety I experienced when I showed up for school, knowing that I didn't do the term paper or the homework that was I was going to be sitting at my desk. The teacher was going to walk up to me and ask me for the homework. And I was going to have to say, I didn't do it. So when I think about the amount of stress of, with that compared to the amount of stress of I'm keeping a secret side relationship going that could blow up on me at any moment, the anxiety that would cause, I have no doubt, in addition to my amazingly flawless character, is a thing that has kept me faithful in all my relationships. The idea that, I'm gonna have to bury all this stuff and keep it buried because if I ever get found out, it's gonna blow up and destroy my life.
Well, clearly you valued your relationships more than a side hustle, right? So yeah, I think that speaks a lot to, the value of the relationships you were in.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky to have some good relationships with some good people. And the idea of, even being in a mode where I was open to doing things that I would feel guilty about and feel like I had to hide. the juice just wouldn't be worth the squeeze to me. And I hope I stay wired that way for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So Glover defines integrity as deciding what feels right and doing it versus using a committee approach. And
yeah, trying to please all the people all the time.
Yeah, that just doesn't sound like that's going to work.
No, because you can't do it. I mean, even just in a purely professional sense, you walk into a business meeting in a room full of 7, 8, 9 people, especially if you're in the position of being the subject matter expert and they start asking you questions about what we should do going forward. If you're honest with them, you're gonna disappoint some people and you're gonna make some other people happy.
Yeah.
And that's just, one of the things you have to learn and be okay with. At least I had to in, my job as a consultant. I'm going in as the person who's supposed to be the expert, and these different departments, you've been through it too, because you and I had the same job for a while. Legal wants to do one thing, IT wants to do another thing, compliance wants to do another thing, and they very often can't all get what they're looking for out of the software.
Yeah. And by telling the truth for me in those situations actually was a stress relief, because then at that point, I'm not telling one group one thing, another group another thing,
right?
And then having to negotiate between the two or whatever. I'm saying the same thing, and it's like, okay, well, you guys figure it out. You deal with it.
Exactly.
Point, right? Okay, this is the way it is. I can't. This is what reality is. This is truth. There's no changing of this. So you let me know what you want to do. Right? These are your choices. That's it.
I had a great friend and coworker, this guy Mike, that he ran a software development department, and people would always ask him about they had an in-house ingrown line of business application that basically ran the business. And the question he always got was, hey, can we get it to do this? How long will it, is that hard? How long will it take? And his answer was, look, it's software. I can make it do anything you want to. It's just, do you have the time and money to make it happen? And the answer was usually no.
Right. Yeah.
No, yeah. We'll go ahead and change our process to be happy with what it currently does. Thanks.
Oh, you mean you're not going to do this for me for free? Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the last item here, Glover talks about in terms of reclaiming your personal power, which is a huge one for me. I see lots of value in this, and where I have struggled a little bit and I'm working on through is setting boundaries. And that's where I tend to get uncomfortable is setting those boundaries. And ironically, more often than not, I don't, once I set them, usually, things go so much smoother, and I rarely have I had to execute the consequences of whatever boundary I set.
Yeah. 90% of the work is just saying it and putting it out there and destroying that, assumed or covert contract that existed before you laid out the boundary.
Yeah. And that's the ironic part, is because your brain goes to these extremes. So they think, or all your brains out there think the brain, I know mine does, will go and think worst case scenario, that if you put that boundary out there, that they're going to have this horrible reactions. They're going to hate you. They're going to close, they're going to fire you. The deal's going to be whatever that is. And it turns out they're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize you felt that way. Just like, it's like, okay, yeah, we can do it that way. It happened to me the other day with a client, and I was just like, oh, all right. I had nothing to worry about.
It happened to me. Was it yesterday with you, where we were talking about something that was said during one of our podcast episodes. And I was like, hey, when you said this, it kind of bothered me. So can we not say that anymore? And I had some anxiety to bring it up to you, but not much, because we have a friendship where we can say stuff to each other.
Yeah.
But your attitude was exactly, what the best case scenario was. Oh yeah, I get where you're coming from with that, and I won't say it again.
Yeah.
And that's all there was to it.
Right. And it's crazy. So that's the other thing that is good. What has been good for me through reading this book was that I realized how much I'm assuming things, and based on not having all the information and just going, wow, I'm kind of not as smart as I thought I was when it comes to interpreting what these people are going to think or say or do.
Yes.
And it's a little humbling, but it's also kind of exciting, because it's like, oh, wow. I've got a little bit more courage now to, come up with a boundary that's going to serve me a little bit better and will make the relationship better in the end.
Yeah, and it's so funny that we expect such radically different behavior from other people than what we would do ourselves. Because,
yes,
I think if a friend or loved one ever came to me and said, hey, that thing you said or did, bothered me. I mean, yes, there is a part of me that wants to go into that deer response where I want to defend myself and all that, but I wouldn't get mad at them. I wouldn't say I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I'd feel bad about it, which would make me feel insecure, which would make me have the instinct to defend myself. But, really, I like to think that at my best, all I would do is say, okay, I understand. I won't do that again. But we think when we're on the other side of it, oh, if I tell Dan that the thing he said bothered me, he's not going to be my friend anymore. We're not going to do any more podcasts. He's going to hate me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I didn't really think those things because, again, you and I have a pretty long track record of saying all kinds of things to each other and being okay with it. But, those things do flash in your head of, okay, I'm going to set this boundary, and they're going to say, I don't accept your boundary. I'd rather just never see or talk to you again.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still, when it flashes through your head, you still get a feeling. You still get a physical feeling from that thing flashing in your head.
For sure.
That might linger a little bit, even after that thought is gone. And that's not a fun feeling to have. So a lot of times, you got to talk yourself out of that.
Yeah. 100%. And so, setting those boundaries is, the anxiety that you experience leading up to setting the boundary is 99% of the time. That's the worst part of it.
Yep.
The actual conversation is not that bad. And the part where they respect it and then don't violate that boundary is pretty great.
Yeah. And I feel it always makes the relationship stronger because now there's a lot less mystery in terms of that topic when it comes to, your interpretation and what you want and their interpretation and what they want. You've removed a lot of that, the assumptions, you've removed a lot of that mystery, and that allows you then to get closer to that person and understand them a little bit more. So when there's other similar type of subjects or things that come up, they're going to be a lot easier to address. And there's going to be a lot less fear behind addressing them and setting those boundaries and having those conversations. So I think boundary setting is one of those things, as the more you do it, the easier it will get for you.
The coolest thing about it is when you do it with someone, it makes it easier for you to do it the next time. And it also makes it easier for them to do it with you. So it improves it, and it improves it in both directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, eventually, if you're talking about a long-term relationship, a long friendship or a marriage, eventually, the more comfortable you get with setting those boundaries, down the road, you become a couple of people who are never stepping over each other's boundaries anymore because you've already had all those discussions.
Yeah. And through that, again, you've gotten to know that person
deeply,
and who they are on a much deeper level. And then, and then it's just gravy after that, right? Everything's smooth after that, right?
I mean, you can,
but it's
hopefully, if you have enough fights about enough issues and you fight well, there are things that you can lay to rest permanently. And then, yes, the life is full of unexpected new challenges, but it is possible that you can establish, okay, when this thing happens, this is how we handle it. This is how we move past it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of like, if I like to wrap it up here at this point about this chapter, unless there's anything you wanted to contribute more based on what we've talked about.
I think we covered the good stuff.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
So how do you feel? You think there's going to be a version 3, or are we going to be happy with version 2?
I'm pretty happy with version 2, actually.
Yeah,
I'm actually a little pleasantly surprised. We were both kind of, you were good. I was dragging a little bit coming into this, but I think this worked out pretty well, and we shared some new insights from the first the first go around on this podcast. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like, and just for our listeners, to give them a little inside baseball, the way that we do this is typically for each chapter, one of us sort of outlines it and makes all the notes in the summary and kind of drives the discussion and keeps it on topic, where the other one is able to just kind of respond to. And in this case, Dan was driving the conversation, the outline and his notes and all that. And as he brings these things up, I just get to ramble on about my views. And then on the even numbered chapters, we do it the opposite way. So I'm enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to, we only have a few more chapters left of this book before we'll be done with it, and we'll be able to move on to another book. And I'm liking this this format where we switch off being the one responsible for keeping the agenda.
Yeah, it works well while we still have full-time jobs. Keep it as busy.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. So the next podcast is going to be led by Charles. It's going to be about reclaiming your masculinity as a nice guy.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. We version 1 of that one, we went for an hour and 51 minutes. So let's try not to do that on version 2.
Yeah.
And I went off on a lot of rants, which is supposed to be your job on the even numbered ones, but I went ahead and ran the outline and did all the rants. So I was probably talking 75% of the time on chapter 6. So we'll see if we get a little more balance into it.
Well, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will
too. I mean, the people love my voice. I got to give the people what they want.
I love your voice. You got a great voice. So
it's the content that's problematic.
Yeah. All right, sir, we're going to wrap this one up. And
yeah, sounds good, Dan. I will look forward to talking to you on chapter 6 at our next get together.
All right. Have a good evening. Talk to you later.
You too.
Bye-bye.